Alright folks, so I know that many of you are generally interested in seeing movies and video games analyzed with regards to realism, and recently someone suggested taking a look at Vikings, a TV show, one fight in particular, Ragnar Lodbrok versus Earl Haraldson, and quite a number of people have asked me about Vikings. Now I haven't watched the show myself, but let's just take a look at this fight here. Before I start, the usual disclaimer: if you're a fan of the show and I say anything negative about it, the choreography or the editing, you don't have to feel as if that invalidates your entire existence. It's okay. This is just for entertainment, and yes, I know, it's just fiction. People are asking for it, so let's do it. It starts out actually pretty decent. So, he's actually using his shield for defense. Catches those two cuts. And, this, I feel like he doesn't really need to use the sword the way he does. I mean, it looks good. This part definitely looks good. But, he already has it covered with the shield. So if you wanted to make this more realistic, you would right here, you would make him strike at Ragnar and not just swipe his sword away. Because, he's already defended against that thrust. There's really no reason for it. Now here, this is one of my major pet peeves in a lot of movies and TV shows. All the damn editing. This is so over-edited. And also, some of the camera angles are just terrible and confusing. Like this here. Why do we need to look over people's blurry shoulders? This just means that we can't really see properly what's going on. And also, okay, one cut. Second cut. Did we need this? I don't think so. This could have been one cut at most. So here, like in this case, with the way Ragnar is standing, it makes sense that he would parry this strike with the sword, but he shouldn't really have his shield so far back to begin with. It would make more sense to have the shield in front and use that as a defensive tool. Now, if they were using sword and buckler, that would be a different story. In historical sword and buckler fighting, you would parry a lot with the blade rather than the buckler, because the buckler is really small. The main purpose was to protect the hand. But these guys here have full-sized shields, so there's really no reason for that. But yeah, as I said, it's not the worst. Now they go back to actually using their shields, which is good. The shields are really thick looking, by the way. I mean, they're movie props, so I don't know what they're made of. I'm guessing might even be some kind of foam, perhaps. I don't know. But historical shields would be much, much thinner. Just as a side note, they look a little clunky. Anyway, so here's another pet peeve of mine. Now, I don't know the context of this, because as I said, I haven't watched the show. But you can see Ragnar is limping here. And he does that for a little while, but then later in the fight, it suddenly doesn't matter anymore. And this is one of my pet peeves, because this happens so often that a fighter would look injured, get shot by an arrow, or get stabbed by a sword, or whatever, something like that. And then they would struggle with it for a while, and then when it really matters, it's gone. It doesn't affect them anymore whatsoever. And I never see the point in that. Why show an injury that doesn't ultimately matter anyway? If you want to increase the stakes and make it more tense, then maybe make the injury actually matter. I mean, sure, if you have a situation where, the adrenaline kicks in and the main hero is just pulling himself together and fighting through the pain and everything, but you should still see the struggle, in my opinion. Whereas in a lot of scenes, at a certain point, the character doesn't actually react to the injury anymore and doesn't seem to be struggling with it anymore. And at that point, it just becomes, well, pointless. This is a really weird moment. So his opponent strikes, deliberately misses, apparently. I mean, he had that covered, and then he does this spin. This completely pointless spin that doesn't accomplish anything at that time. And then he strikes with a flat of his sword, apparently. So, I don't know what's up with that. That doesn't make much sense. And also, all these cuts, stop with the constant cuts. Especially also here. He moves in with the strong cut right there, and then, oh, blurry hands. Why do we need this? Do we want to see this? I want to see what's happening. I want to see what the fighters are actually doing. I don't care about the waving audience and whatnot. So there are a lot of things that make this fight scene really confusing. This part here, so he breaks the sword on the guy's shield. So that's a pretty crappy sword, isn't it? I mean, to be fair, depending on how much it's been used, over time, a blade can wear out. You can get microfractures, and then eventually it can break at a seemingly unlikely moment, striking something that's not really supposed to break it normally, just because the metal has fatigued so much. And especially also considering that at the time they didn't have crucible steel, the blades were made of iron, so stuff like that could potentially happen. Okay, so now we're getting to the fun stuff. So now they're both just smashing each other back and forth with the shields. So they're just bashing the shields against each other. And the Earl's apparently not using the sword anymore, which is weird considering that, well, he has an advantage now. His opponent doesn't have a sword, he only has a shield now. And, looking at this here, for example, he's got the shield covered. Ragnar's shield isn't going anywhere, it's not threatening him, and his sword is ready. His legs are here. Why is he not cutting to the legs? Well, why? Because it's the main character and he's not supposed to die there. Okay, and then both shields break at once, which is convenient. And so now then we have the scene where the Earl has a sword and Ragnar has absolutely nothing, so the Earl could kill him right now, but he decides to do the honorable thing and throws the sword to the side, which, that's pretty cool. It makes sense and all that, and they get new weapons. This is also described in the sagas, where they would do a holmgang, which is the traditional duel, and they would often go through several shields, the way it's described in the sagas. So a shield will break, or maybe even a weapon, and they would get a new one, so they can continue the fight, being completely fair. Okay, so there he does the hopping again. So the leg injury makes an appearance, but only for brief moments. Then when he keeps on moving, he moves just normally. It doesn't really seem to affect him. Okay, axe wrestling, well, will you do something? It's just this typical movie thing where they just push against each other and have this intense staring contest, and it's exchange a few words and everything, and not doing anything at all. This is another one of my pet peeves. Now, it's a very common movie trope, and it's difficult to make them exchange words in the middle of the fight without stuff like that, so I can see why they're doing it, but I still find it silly. And here's a pretty good exchange. Ragnar strikes with the axe, the Earl parries it, wrenches it to the side, and then he counters. This is actually a pretty good sequence. This can be definitely considered realistic. What's less realistic, in my opinion, is that he takes this hit with an axe to his upper chest and can continue fighting. That's stretching it a little bit. I mean, okay, again, under adrenaline, and it's a fight to the death, and you have to keep going, otherwise you die. I get all that, but axes hit really, really damn hard. We've seen that over and over again whenever I've done tests with axes. And getting struck here, it looks like it takes out the collarbone. Either that or it's a little hard to say. It might also be the sternum. Either way, that's bad news. In fact, this is likely to sever a major blood vessel there. So he would have a hard time continuing, I think. This can very well be lethal, or at the very least, disabling. Moment, I've got a package. All right, let's continue. By the way, if you think I'm being too harsh on this, I understand. I mean, I'm kind of a professional overthinker in a way, and if you're just watching the show to enjoy it, you probably wouldn't even notice most of these things. I mean, the excessive cuts, you would notice, I'm pretty sure. When I saw it the first time, that's what really stood out to me. It's just cuts, all kinds of confusing, weird, unnecessary camera angles. That's really my main problem here. Sometimes you have no idea what's even happening. Like right here, if I just watch it as it is, there's so many cuts and confusing angles, and I have no idea what just happened. If I keep watching it over and over again, I don't know what's happening. So if I actually go through it, like scrub through it, then I can maybe see what's happening. Okay, so he's trying to strike at him, although is he really? Because he's so close, and the axe head is behind Ragnar, so it can't even really hit him. So then he raises up there, kind of blocks it that way, and then he does what? Okay, so he stabs him with the handle. And then, what does he do then? Okay, then he comes around for the swing. Okay. And only when I scrub through this slowly can I actually puzzle together what just happened. There was also a problem in the Arya versus Brienne fight in Game of Thrones that I talked about recently. Now, I looked at the choreography in particular because that actually allowed me to see what was going on. Whereas in the final episode, cuts all over the place, and sometimes really weird cuts too. There's a scene where Brienne kicks Arya and she falls down, and then the next, like, suddenly jump cut and she stands. I don't get it. This is really, I kind of get it, because in some cases during recording, maybe some things go wrong, or the editor says, no, I don't like the way the scene turned out, and then they want to cut this together. But the viewing experience really suffers, and the actors clearly show that they can pull this off. They can do a sequence, a relatively long sequence even, in a choreography without needing constant edits. So yeah, I think that's enough. I've ranted plenty about this, and let's leave it at that. So I hope you found this entertaining, and thanks for watching.